Akiba's Trip, Undead and Undressed, also known as Akiba's Trip 2 in Japan, was released in North America on August 12th of 2014 for both the PlayStation 3 and PS Vita. A PlayStation 4 port will be released in November 4th of 2014 in North America. The game was developed by Acquire, which is probably best known for developing the Tenchu series of the 90s. Akiba's Trip is a visual novel beat-em-up hybrid with some RPG-like elements that takes place in the Akihabara district of Tokyo. Because the game takes place in Akihabara, much of the game is centered around Japanese otaku culture. This game was released in stores in pretty short supply, at least in my area. Most of the stores either didn't carry it or only received one copy. I had to go to 3 stores before I found my copy of it. The game's plot is told through voice-acted, visual novel-style scenes, similar to many Atlas RPGs. The game starts off with you waking up tied to a table with some people around you. You're informed that you've been turned into a synthester, which is sort of like a vampire that drains people of their social energy and will to live and mindlessly pursues their desires. Synthesters are also able to go out into sunlight as long as they have clothing on to protect them from the sun. You're quickly rescued from the room you wake up in by a girl named Shizuku Tokikaze. Upon getting to a shrine for safety, she shares some of her blood with you in order to reverse the part of being a synthester that makes you mindless. After a bloody makeout session with Shizuku, you head to your favorite hangout in Akihabara, which is an otaku bar called Mogra. After arriving at Mogra, Shizuku informs you and your other friends about the synthesters who are preying on the patrons of Akihabara. After this, you set out attempting to stop the synthesters and a series of missions that take place all around the Akihabara district. Almost every mission in the game tends to have you go somewhere, fight some guys, and then go back to Mogra. It gets to feel really formulaic after a short amount of time, and with fast travel you can whiz right through the game's plot fairly quickly. If you skip through all the dialogue, the game can be beaten in around 2.5 hours, and if you actually listen to all the dialogue, it's a little closer to 9 hours. The game has multiple endings based on what you say in dialogue sequences, however around 80% of what you say has no effect on the ending at all. Also around 50% of the options won't even change the dialogue. For instance, early in the game when you introduce yourself to Shizuku, you have 3 options that all say the same thing for the most part. With the exception of maybe 3 parts of the game, the dialogue you choose is pretty much meaningless. The goal of combat is to remove all the clothes from your opponents, which are divided into headwear, shirts, and bottoms. There's a button to attack each clothing slot in combat. In order to strip an enemy of their clothing, you have to attack each clothing type enough to remove it. If you weaken multiple opponents' clothing before performing a strip attack, you're able to chain together a multi-strip, which will allow you to strip many articles of clothing all at once. In terms of the beat-em-up gameplay, it feels really clunky. Many times when you move your character to lock onto another enemy in combat, the game won't respond, which makes the battles feel really clunky, especially if you're getting hit by multiple enemies that can drain your life bar in seconds. However, you are able to fully heal yourself if you hold down the R button without taking any damage for a few seconds. The clunkiness of the battle scenes kinda kills them for me, however many of the battles are actually fairly easy on normal mode, so the game feels like it's making up for being clunky by making it overly easy, which is kind of a bummer. Overall, the gameplay is mediocre at best. Graphically, Akiba's Trip is pretty impressive for a PS Vita title, however it's less impressive as a PS3 game. I've never been to Akihabara, but the game claims to have recreated the experience of being there, which it may have done. The streets are cool to explore, however there really aren't that many areas when you really get down to it. One of the biggest problems is when moving from area to area, the game has fairly long load times, which take around 10 to 15 seconds on the PlayStation Vita, which is longer than it takes to walk through most of the areas, unfortunately, so you'll be seeing the loading screen a lot when you're not fast traveling. The drawn anime characters used in the dialogue sequences do look great and fit the game well. Akiba's Trip soundtrack was composed by Toshiko Tasaki, and it's pretty impressive. It ranges from jazzy to full-on metal for the battles, and it's extremely good. Almost every track stands alone as a great addition for the game and also sets the mood for every situation. Unfortunately, the voice acting isn't as good as the music. Many of the characters have voices that are fine and about what you'd expect for a dubbed anime, however Shizuku's voice feels like it's completely lacking in emotion. The Japanese voice set is better than the English one, however Shizuku still has an extremely calm voice which doesn't at times fit the situation. Akiba's Trip, Undead and Undressed is weird. Really, really weird. From the plot to the gameplay, it's one of the strangest games I've ever played, and if you're looking for that, this game will have you covered. The game's a little on the short side, clocking in at under 9 hours if you read all the dialogue, and doesn't really have that many battles in the game between the dialogue sequences. In total, without counting, I'd guess there's around 30 parts of the game where you actually get to do combat. Other than that, the rest of the game is really visual novel heavy. The combat is unfortunately clunky feeling and doesn't handle great. The game also heavily plays off otaku culture, so if you're not into that at all, this isn't the game for you. I can't really recommend this game to anyone who's not looking for a super weird Japanese game, but if that's what you're looking for, this game will be here waiting for you.